Well, macro perspective peeps, I'm super stoked for this episode. We got Max Hernandez on. I just want to give a little bit of an insight here. Max and I were in a group, like this trainers group a few years ago, and we're just talking about like knee health and all these things. And this is like 2 years out of my wrestling career. I was doing a lot of jits, and I was getting a lot of help in this group, and Max helped me with a few things. So it was super cool. But we got connected on other topics. We did a podcast together talking about like how to live a great life, about mood, emotional health, mental health, getting away from like dopaminergic things and everything kind of like that. But it's been like 4 or 5 years. Haven't connected since. We'll talk each other on the gram. I think that's what social media is for, staying connected. Just seeing what's up. But it's nice to finally be here. Max, would you mind introducing yourself to the community, to the listeners, and just we'll take it from there, man.
Yeah, I was wondering what your normal listeners like, so I can better introduce myself to them. What are they interested in?
Marcos, you want to hit this one up?
It's $1 million question. I mean, to give you the perspective of the macro perspective, the name of the game here is, again, we kind of view things in 5 different pillars as it pertains to health. And our focus is kind of identifying individuals that would fit into those different domains. So in our view, Max, we ultimately think that everything is related to health in some way, shape, or form. Right. And so the more aware people are about the different perspectives and how that particular area can uplift your well being, that is our core listening. So, sometimes we'll have people in that are, specialists in movement, such as yourself, specialists in finance, specialists with, different types of mental or spiritual health. So all those things really encompass what our core goal was. And as Seamus and I have delved further into it, we hope to bring people along that are interested in learning more about those different areas and what people can bring to the table.
Wow. Yeah, that's super helpful and definitely helps because it helps me reframe my story, because I think the easiest way for people to understand me is that I was very depressed, like in high school, college, like 18, 19, 21, that whole group, age range. And I was very injured. It all started because I had a injury in high school and I lost the ability to play basketball, which was like my obsession. That's how I found Knees Over Toes guy, because he'd literally like sending ads out to basketball players. And so I found his stuff like super early on and ended up working for him for 4 years and all of that. So learning Knees Over Toes guy system, ATG, that helped me a lot with like understanding the knowledge of movement so that I could heal my body. But the funny thing was, even like 3-4 years into knowing ATG, I still was having lots and lots of pain and problems. And so I went through this very tough moment where I had to step back and be like, oh my God, it's not just about movement. And I'm having this pain in my body, but like, it's not just movement. So I started opening my mind to lots of holistic factors and went down the rabbit holes of um, mental causes of pain, community, purpose, spiritual causes, all these other factors that are like, a whole holistic approach to life. Even something as far as like getting married. I got married in June. That's a huge part of my
Hey,
health. That's
congrats.
happiness and
What
purpose.
date?
Thank you.
What date?
Yeah, I got married June 2nd.
You're like 26 days ahead of me. Mine was the 28th, dude. Congrats. We're both
But like I
locked
would have
down.
never, when I was 21, I was depressed, anxious. Like I graduated college with an accounting degree and I was like, what am I going to do in this life? And I swore off women. I was like, I'm going to be a monk. I'm just like, I'm not going to get distracted by women. But now like 5 years later, I'm starting to realize the balance of holistic health, and happiness.
Boom.
I think this is going to be a great conversation, Marcos. This is going to be so good.
Percent. And I think that's part of our journey, Max. Not to say, Seamus, I'm trying to work on my ums.
We're going to cut it out through the edits, but
Yeah, you're
go
right.
ahead.
Like it'll do it automatically. So our journey, Max, when we got started with this 3 years ago, or almost 3 years ago at this point, it was really a segue into our own views of like health and how we can communicate with one another, just like the bros. And as a result, it was like, if we work on practicing like a skill at the same time, it'll probably be really valuable for both of us. And as a result, here we are, going at like 200 episodes deep, had amazing conversations for an hour to 90 minutes to 2 hours with individuals that we never thought that we would rub elbows with, or kind of on our Mount Rushmore of people. And it continues to like, move that goalpost even further for us. And there are so many components of the holistic realm that we were unaware of. Hell, like Seamus, looking back at our list, like think about some of the encounters we had early on with like sexual experts and things that were
Still the biggest YouTube episode, apparently.
no, not anymore. It's been surpassed, which is kind of
Okay.
crazy that one because it was so taboo, did so well in the early days because
Yeah.
apparently we can hack an algorithm back before AI was really a thing.
You have to put sex in there.
Yeah, put sex in the title. You'll do incredibly well as your first video on YouTube. Who would have thunk it, Max? But in the endeavor of getting better with public speaking and practicing as though we're speaking to an audience, that's what's this is all kind of turned into. Can we
Yeah.
build a platform where people can come in and share their story and resonate with people and how to heal themselves in a particular way, shape, or form? And like you said, to have something that was such a big part of your day to day and life kind of taken away from you when you weren't ready for that to be the case, it is a life lesson that a lot of people hopefully can get some wisdom behind hearing that versus
Yeah.
experiencing in them for themselves. My
Yeah.
biggest downfall was a shoulder injury in CrossFit. And I feel like it really prevented me from reaching a level that I was really ever truly happy with. Probably why I put myself into training so hard. Whereas now my mom's like, "Do you even do any cardio?" And I was like, "No, I just walk." So, the journey is really quite a unique thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for like starting with that. Like, I know it's all already kind of it's going to get a little heavy as the conversation goes, but I think that's the important stuff, the stuff that like
Totally.
we need to really unpack and be true, because I think people will resonate with that. Like, Marcos had his injuries, I had my injuries wrestling and college, and that's how we met. And it's like, I will be honest with you, my identity was so tied up into this image of myself with sport, and to have an injury, there was this depression and type of, I feel like, super lonely place that people don't really know about if you haven't felt that, because you get everything ripped underneath you. I remember I had a low back injury, I've had a knee and a shoulder issue all before big tournaments and big things. And it's like, I was captain of the team, and you kind of go like, dang, bro, I've worked this hard all year for this moment, for it to be pulled out just because of a little tweak, little thing. And it makes you go to places in your head that you're like, how did I ever even get here? So I appreciate you sharing that, because I feel like a lot of
Yeah.
people can resonate with that. I know, let's talk about your journey there with like pain, healing, mental health, cognitive, because I feel like that expands a lot of things. But you said you first started with some physical. Obviously, the physical is like the first place. Hey, let's fix up this knee, let's fix up
Right.
this shoulder, let's fix up this back. That didn't work out. So when that didn't work out, you kind of go, okay, hey, what are the other components? Do I need to work on some mental resilience? Do I need to work on some emotional things? Take us through that journey a little bit. I bet you
Sure.
some people will find that a little bit, helpful.
Yeah, I was the kid who was in every MRI machine and CAT scan from in high school from like 15 to 18. I think I had like 15 of them or something. And my mom was taking me around to all of them, like what's wrong with this kid basically? Like his wrist is broken, his ankle's broken, like always trying to find an answer. And then almost every time I was injured, the doctor was like, we don't see anything. And it was like, it was so hard as a kid I'm like, what do you mean there's nothing wrong with me? You know what I mean? Like it was a very emotional, like that's where the sadness, the depression came from, because I couldn't get any answers. And so now, having studied movement with ATG, like holistic health for like 4+ years, it's like, yes, definitely. If I would have known that I could strengthen my ankles, my knees, I don't think I would have necessarily ended up in all the same injuries that I had. But there was a point where basically I found ATG, graduated college with an accounting degree, like I said, and I told my parents I'm not getting a 9 to 5 job because I said I hate the 9 to 5. There was some point in my life where I was like, I know I'm an entrepreneur. I don't want to pursue the 9 to 5. And so as like a young kid, I was like, I'm not getting a job. Like I just like refused to go into the world. Like it was like a scary thing to me. I started like seeing people in my life who, at first they were just like a family member or a friend or a teacher. And then I was like, oh my God, they're living this like, quiet life of desperation kind of thing, where they're just like doing the job. They hate the job. They show up, they have a little bit of happiness. And like, I started seeing that as like a pretty young kid. And it scared me so much that like, I didn't want to join it. So I told my parents I'm starting a YouTube channel. I graduated college. I started making YouTube videos. And luckily I found Ben Patrick. And then I got obsessed with his community. I ended up getting a job from his community like months later. And that's kind of how I started my career. I just kind of obsessed over some guy on the internet. I wrote an article about him and landed a job with him. But then shortly after, like even getting the job with ATG, I slipped back into a depression. So I was like going at life. I was like, oh my God, I figured this out. I'm personally developing. Seamus, we talked about like the NoFap thing. So I was like really into like that whole community when I was young. And I think I've now got a little more macro perspective on that, you could say. But after getting the ATG job, I still then slipped into pain and injuries. I was actually worse off than when I found ATG. And that's when I started getting on calls with people. I was in this community of coaches that you were in, Seamus, and I opened up emotionally on this call with like 10, 15 other guys who are like top leaders. Like Graham Tuttle was in there, Zach Woodward, Keegan Smith, like some of these really big fitness leaders. And they're like, hey, is there anything else going on in your life? And when I was telling them about all the pain I got going on, and then they told me about this idea of psychosomatic pain, and it just like rang true to me when I heard that. I was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
yeah,
Real
this
quick,
is
because there's a lot there. I want to put a little bit of bookmarks there. I know Marcus's head is spinning. Just to recap, you went through a system to help with pain.
yep.
It helped, but then it didn't help after some time.
It
And
helped,
then
yeah, and then it just plummeted.
yeah, and then you did like the whole no fap thing. And for the folks that are listening to this, like I think that was like a movement among young men of like, trying to manage like dopamine behaviors around like sexually compulsive things, which I think overall probably was a good thing for most folks to like
Right.
really manage. We've had someone on here that I work with, JK and Maisie, around this concept of porn reboot. I think that's
Nice.
great for a lot of young men not to mess around. But without even saying that, but then now you went past this, you created this, and now you're in this psychosomatic concept of pain. Okay, this right here, I feel like we need to hold space for this a little bit. Marcos and I deal with pain a lot in our day-to-day work. Pain is such an odd thing, right, Marcos? Like, I feel like you could have an injury, but some people, you open up their backs, they got the most messed up backs in the world. I'm not in pain. Then you got people that have nothing wrong with their backs, like kind of like Mark's talking about. Why am I in so much pain?
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like, if you want to break that down a little bit for the listeners too, like break that concept down a little too.
You saying me or Marcos?
Marcos, if he wants to take it, or if he wants to tune in on a little comment.
I'll riff for a second. I think it's fascinating. It's kind of like I've recently been listening to a lot about, and I actually had to listen to a call yesterday about oral testosterone therapy treatment and how just different types of interventions and receptor densities are just different amongst people. And it's just your genetic makeup. No real rhyme or reason. So I think there's just something to that. Why is it that 100 megs of testosterone for one individual is different than another, right? I think it's just the complexity of hereditary things. I think it's the complexities of just the human biology in general. And like you're saying, I'm not a pain management specialist, but I do know that when I'm trying to mitigate my own pain, whether it is psychosomatic and it's just, the fact that I'm getting work done helps me feel better as if I'm putting in the work, I feel as though that's part of like human experience, right? And in a conversation today with a chiropractor buddy of mine, he's my buddy in South Africa, Seamus, longstanding client for a while now. We're talking about the experience, and while he joked about, some chiros feel like some of the stuff I might be doing is fugazi with shockwave therapy to help with patients overcoming potential, injuries that they're dealing with, right? He's like, I feel like I'm doing people a disservice personally because who's to say that that might not be the thing that helps them alleviate pain, right? And he's like, for a $17 add-on is what it broke down to for like currency exchange. He's like, I feel like it's worth it. And I was like, absolutely, dude. If you told me $17 to get an extra session or come in for an extra 30 minutes and just see it through, right? How do you know if that particular therapy couldn't help you improve upon those pain receptors? So it's long story short, everybody's different, right? Different inputs, different outputs for everybody, right? Max, like you can dunk a basketball, right?
Can pull the rim down, but I can't dunk.
Okay, close enough. I can't get rim, right? So like, how tall are you?
5'8.5".
Okay, it's 5'10.5" on a good day, right?
Yeah.
So I would love the ability to get to that point, right? And I see individuals that have probably gravitated toward your guys' like part of the internet when with ATG was like, he's like, I'm standing still and I have the ability to dunk this basketball as a dude that's really not that tall, right? And the whole body response in different systems is completely fascinating, Seamus, for sure, right? Like I wish there was a solution. I wish someone could be like, hey, this is why you have a sciatic pain. And like, this is the exact fix, but yet I still have it and no one's exactly fixed it, but I can alleviate some of the issues that do come about when I'm being an asshole with training.
Yeah, for real. Back to psychosomatic, like for you, Max, like when these guys talk to you about it, like what did that do for you? Like how do they break it down for you? Like how did that open up your mind?
Yeah, it is a tough topic to hear when you're in a lot of pain. When you hear that, it's not that it's saying the pain isn't there, but it's basically saying basically what the mind is doing to the body in a sense, or it's not necessarily just a physical cause.
It's a
So
two-way street. The mind is the
yes,
body is the mind. Where is the mind? Right? It's like the same thing with phantom limb. It's like, why do they feel pain? Well, so, but yeah, go ahead.
right. So you tap into basically memories, in my opinion. That's the simplest way how I've understood it. When you have someone with PTS, SD, or what it is, right? They have a very painful memory from the army, and they still live that day in, day out. Like the memory comes back. And so it started to make sense. I didn't know that when I first experienced it, but I dug into these rabbit holes of psychosomatic pain and found a lot of different solutions for it. And it totally transformed my life. Basically, what happened was there was a guy named Graham Tuttle, barefoot sprinter, ATG coach, and I was very drawn to his presence in our community and stuff like that. So I said, "Hey, I would love to visit you and kind of shadow you." So I flew out to North Carolina and basically lived in this guy's house for like 2 weeks, followed him around. He actually left for a little bit. I was like watching his house. He's like, "You can stick around." It's a kind of weird thing, but he basically just blew my mind. Like he sat me down, cooked me steak at his table, and he was like, just like, "Tell me what's going on," you know? Because like this was at a point I was 23. This was I was plummeting again with ATG. I was back in pain, and like I said, 3 years ago, and I was just like, I had like maybe $2,000 to my name. I don't even think I had a car at this point. Like I was living with my parents, and he was like, "You're basically a child." Like he didn't tell me this in a rude way, but he was like, Your family, your parents have kind of allowed you to be a little boy, and like you need to grow up." And like he said it in like over the course of like weeks, you know, but like he made this aware to me that like I was being a child, like I have to actually level up as a man. And so he gave me advice. He said, "I actually work with this men's coach. I would really recommend you work with him because I know you're going through a lot of this stuff in your head." And I didn't work with this guy for, I think it was like 7 or 8 months. Like I went off, I traveled to Paris. I was just like broke, just like traveling and going around life, like figuring stuff out. I finally came home and I was like, okay, I'm going to like take this guy's advice because I was like the deepest pit of my entire life 3 years ago, suicidal. Like, I don't want to go into too much depth, but like, just like very holding on to life, you know? And then I reached out to this guy. His name's Jack May. His Instagram is Wild Man Wellness. Very interesting character, really deep into whole like men's coaching, which is kind of like men's therapy, so to speak, helping guys like process their emotions, that kind of stuff. So I worked with Jack for a year. We did like 18 different therapy sessions. And he basically helped me like we'd just have a conversation and then he'd say, "What's that about?" And I'd be like, "Well, I feel kind of like sad about this thing." Say, "Okay, like let's stick with that." And all of a sudden we would be in this like therapy technique where I'm actually processing a past memory that I'm still holding on to. And then I fully process it using his like therapy method. He was using something called internal family systems, IFS. And I was like, oh my God. Like I would have a session over Zoom. He's in like Australia or something. Next day, I would wake up and be like, wow, like I had more energy to give to the world. You know what I mean? And then yeah, I did 18 sessions with him. It took me from like being depressed and living with my parents to literally driving a car across the country to Clearwater, Florida, where Ben Patrick was, living in his community for like 2 years, and just like starting a whole new life in Florida and having the courage to be like, I'm going to go start where I'm basically homeless. Literally, I drove across country, was homeless. I lived in like a tent for a day. And my friend was like, "You're doing what?" He's like an ATG coach. He's like, "You're living in a tent? Like, this is crazy." So he let me sleep on his couch. But like getting out of my parents' house, like it sounds kind of rude because I love my family and like it has nothing against them. But getting out of their house and growing up as a man and being like, how am I going to make rent? How am I going to live? How am I going to eat food? I got to start working. I got to start doing something. That changed my life. And it was only because I started actually addressing the real problem.
Deep.
Yeah, that
And
was a lot.
no, well,
It's
I
good.
appreciate you sharing that, and I think the journey in which that bridge to manhood, in a sense, is taking more ownership of your life, right? And I feel like I could look back at just dumbass behaviors that I did, and my wife would be displeased if but whatever. Share the story anyways because it's a good story, right? Like I dated some dumb people, in between end of high school into college and then before my wife. One of which was living the Vegas dream, dating a stripper like an idiot, thinking it was like, I'm going to save her. The hero complex. But it did also teach me, Seamus over there just dying on mute. But it also taught me too, it's like certain people, even if you have this willingness to want to fix people as like your core identity, it could be better served in other energy. And while I'm not trying to fix anything that my kids do, it's a far better use of my time to try to instill upon them behaviors in which I feel like a good person is, and hopefully they can take it with what they will then need when they reach that age that you were potentially struggling with, Max. And hopefully they can come if they're dealing with some difficulties emotionally, mentally, whatever it is that's holding them back, and be able to take that leap of faith. And again, it may not be a traditional way of going about it. Maybe they don't want to go to college. Maybe they want to do something more entrepreneurial led, like you're mentioning, right? Maybe part of the thing of growing up was that your path was supposed to be different earlier on, but society was telling you you need to do these things. But I'm sure you look back at having that education done and realizing that there's still more doors and opportunities that could now be opened, even though you went through that time where it was not ideal, right? Like
Totally.
my shit equally as difficult for me to get my degree done. I was like, when did I just get the real fucking life? I'm like, I'm tired of like not actually earning something and being able to go buy stuff that I actually want. I'm kind of still stuck here, like in my parents' house in my, early 20s.
The
And
system is
granted,
not set up for us to succeed. As
no,
much as I don't regret anything in my life because otherwise I wouldn't be right here. But if I don't see that kids could be so much better by the time like they're 16 years old. They could be super smart. They could know how to do their taxes. I know that's a common example people give, but they could know how to think. They could know how
Mhm.
to write. They could know how to read and actually like read with like comprehension. They could know so much more valuable skills, public speaking. Like we could be teaching kids way more in school, but the system is set up to create 9 to 5 workers, laborers, because that's what they did and when the Industrial Revolution happened. So it's like it's not like I don't necessarily think we need to like take the system down, but like clearly it's for me to be 23 years old and depressed living with my parents because I wasn't doing anything, because I didn't do anything and I wasn't adding any value to society. Of course I was depressed. Like I was sitting there with a college degree that didn't mean anything to me. So like obviously if you're not adding value as a
Yeah.
human, you're not going to be happy.
Yeah. No, it makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. I know Marcos loves this topic because he's also in education, right,
Oh,
Marcos? It's
cool.
like it
Yeah. Oh.
he and I talk about like those what are those different types of schools that you're interested in, Marcos? Like the different
Oh,
teaching style of
so
The
yeah,
Montessori
listen.
one?
No, it's not a Montessori. Oh my goodness. It's a school. It's almost like a self-led, like you don't actually have teachers. You have like, I think they call them coaches.
Mm.
So it's more of like, what do you want to learn? And it's kind of self-guided. The curriculum has certain levels of interest, and then based on your interest, you can tie in math, science, reading, writing, all those other components that would help you do it. So it's almost a little bit more project-based learning. And I want to say it was like Power School. Oh man.
you were talking about it for a little bit. No, that makes a lot of sense. While you try to find that for a second, Marcos, I think
Yeah.
one thing too, Max, is
Alpha School. It came to
Alpha
me.
School. Yeah, that's right. That's the one. I think also too, Max, like I think we've talked about this is like when you're younger, especially for males that are younger, sometimes a lot of their identity can be in a certain thing, like a sport, for example, and they get so tied into that they don't develop other parts of their life, right?
Right.
I know that for me, like I didn't develop one of the things I'm working right now is like empathy or like different factors of like, yeah, getting your taxes done, like organizational skills or speaking skills. You had like one purpose and one purpose only. So you may feel ill equipped for life, right? And that may make you feel overwhelmed or underutilized or underdeveloped. And I think sometimes having therapy, I love therapy, I've done a lot of it, makes you look introspectively and go, these are the areas of my life that I need to resolve. There are other things as well. And I think sometimes when you go through those therapies, for young men, I think the struggle too sometimes is they don't have proper sets of values instilled. Whether that could be traditional through, I'll just use an example like religion, for example. That's just one concept. But other untraditional values that are not found in religion, but can be found within other practices, like a modus operandi, like Stoicism, for example, just like a philosophy. I think sometimes if there are no instillment values, you could feel pretty lost, and that can create other emotional things down the line, right? That you may feel in your life. Let me ask you this, like after doing those 18 sessions, which sounded super powerful, did you come up with like some certain set of values that you like, these are the standards and values I live by now in your life?
After those 18 sessions, I realized who I was. And that was the most powerful thing.
Mm.
And that's what Jack originally helped me with. It was like, you're not, the rat, what do they call it? The monkey mind or whatever, like the brain going in all these different directions. In IFS, internal family systems, they call it like the self or just the you, like the actual I, the awareness or whatever you want to call it. But that was the first time in my life I realized I was way more powerful than I ever thought. And not in a arrogant way, but a wow, I can do a lot way. And that at the center of it, like we all are like this and we're all very loving and kind and gracious. And we have our moments where people cut us off and we get pissed off or whatever. Your friend says this and it makes you react, like the monkey mind starts racing and you get angry, but then 2 minutes later you apologize because you know who you really are and you're a very kind, gentle, person, because that's who you are. So that's what I was made aware of, and then that led me down so many other paths, and just it always brings me back to the moment in a sense. I'd heard that years before. Like I started like meditating when I was like 17 or 18 when I was getting into personal growth. But I think there's a lot of like maybe spiritual identity as well in that world too, where you can get so into it that it's like, it's a whole nother distraction. Like there was a point I was meditating and it was distracting me from the pain in my life, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've grown a lot in those areas as well. But yeah, that was the big takeaway. Like I just kind of knew who I was for the first time.
It's pretty powerful.
Learning more about the self as we continue to age is fascinating. Max, how old are you again?
26.
I think my perspective is a little different, as 26 for me was dealing with a kid. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's like almost uncommon in today's world. What I would have to go, let me go prompt AI real quick while we're doing this. What is, I feel like the average age of an individual actually having their first kid has been pushed back significantly. And I wonder if that's also part of, I've been actually thinking about this a lot. Is fatherhood supposed to be coming around earlier as you're going through that kind of maturation process? Much like obviously women, when they are truly able to like rear a child, is when their cycle actually starts. But societally, like, we're not educated enough. We're not smart enough. We can't even do taxes. We can't do all these things that are like a norm yet. Like a lot of those things that would be probably growing with you as you're going through those changes, evolutionary speaking, like would have been so impactful to help you develop those things quicker. Because it's like you have this sense of selflessness that's then imposed upon you because you have to worry about other beings and other people that are not yourself.
Dude, I'll tell you this. I know you had your kid at 26. My stepfather passed at 21. So the whole concept that Max was talking about of like finding yourself, I had to like pull my shit up fast because at 21 I was finishing college, um, and like 21, 22, 23, like finishing up college. I was wrestling. I was working as a personal trainer. My stepfather gets cancer. 3 years of that. 2 years of that. He passes. At that point in my life, there was this book. This is why I love Jordan Peterson. And I know he gets a lot of flack on the internet, but like when he came into my life, these words were the best words that I ever said, that I ever read, was like, what kind of person are you? Or when you're at your father's funeral, what kind of person are you? Are you the person that people can find reliable? And I was like, I'm literally going through that right now. And those were the words that for like the next year, I was like, can I prove that I can be of reliance, be relied upon? And
Wow.
I just have to prove that as my identity for over the next year. So like I was working, I was paying like half the bills with my mom, handling insurance, handling the house, handling things. Mind you, I was in a relationship, still trying to compete, working, I was getting promoted, all these different things. And you realize like, oh, okay, like once I took that on, you learn how to like kind of what Marco said, get out of your own head. Cause like, yes, I was sad about my stepfather's passing and I was, you know, I've worked through that. But because people relied on me, you know what I'm saying? Like things had to get done. And you kind of just like supersede your own pain. Not to say that your pain is unvalidated, like my pain was unvalidated. It just made you realize and you put it in a different perspective. Like you just learn how to like manage it. And you're like, this is just part of the process. I didn't identify with the pain, if that makes sense. Like I knew my pain was there, but I just didn't identify it where like I went down those rabbit holes that may have been more painful. But going back to what Marco said about like just that selflessness, stepping into the identity, I was like, yeah, this is how you step into that identity. Obviously, Marco's had it with his kids, so
Yeah, mine
a little bit
mine was
different.
mine imposed a little bit differently, but it's like doing work with my son. Would think that I would dread it, but I actually really enjoy it. Like I hate to be the hard ass with him, but I'm just like he doesn't need me to. He needs me to be the disciplinarian right now. He doesn't need me to be a friend. Right,
Yeah,
every day it's like why I don't want to do that right now. I'm like, dude, it's 2 pages of homework. I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. But I have to be that person. And I'm like, once we're done, I'm like, how do you feel? He's like, good. I actually did learn a little something about it. It's like, all right, cool, nux, good job. Just building that foundational stuff. And but if I'm going and doing something that's like a task for myself, I've freaking dread it. It's weird how like me doing the work that is like his busy work for him feels so much better than my busy work that's actually a part of the thing that makes me money. So, and also, Seamus, I was 24. I'm not doing the math. Like technically, my
When you
son
had your
Oh,
was
first
man.
kid?
24. Yeah, got into it really early, but also too, I mean, Vegas I think matures people a little bit differently because you don't really, all the stuff was in your
You do it in high school, man.
backyard. Kind of, sort of. I feel like everybody has, but like they're like, "What was it like growing up in Vegas?" Like, just you just don't really want to do the frill stuff as a dude because like when you finally mature to be 21, like you're just paying to get into a club. Whereas if you're a cute girl or a woman, like you can kind of just get in for free. But Max, so in this journey of like marriage for you, was it a long relationship previous to it? Was it a like I kind of instantly knew? Was there a long engagement? I mean, Seamus was dating the same girl for longer than the God knows how long, since he was 20. Took him
It
a
was 8
while to.
years. It was 8 years. It took me 7 years to ask her, then we got married, and it's been like 10 years
Yeah,
now.
what are you waiting for, bro? What are you waiting for?
Dude, I'll be really honest with you. I think Des and I, like, I knew, but it was just timing, I guess. Like, I can blame everything from like the lockdown to she's going through her master's program to like she finished her master's program. That's when she finished her master's program. That was like a year after. That's when we got married a year after because it took us a year to plan the wedding. You were at my wedding. You know how intense that shit was. So
I don't know how intense it was. Me and my wife just went to the park and got it done. So I don't know from physical experience. I just know from the perspective of being a groomsman with you and being like, this was a lot of fucking work. And then I was like, honestly, I feel like this is like a chore for everybody here versus like the last couple weddings where I just got to go enjoy it. I was like, oh, this is much better. There's less stress here. I was like, it's cool. I got to experience it with you, dude. But if anybody else ever asked me if I got to that level and they weren't married, I'd be like, hell no. I'm going there for the food and to watch the ceremony of love, not so much the other components of it.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, go ahead, Max. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, like your
it's funny
relationship.
because I just went back home. I lived in Florida for a while, and then once we got married, we met in Florida. So I wanted to bring my wife back home to Illinois, where I grew up, to like introduce her to my family, basically, like get her around them. And we had 4 weddings this summer within the family, and I was like, just like it was very. It was like the first time I ever really appreciated a wedding, where you're like looking at the couple and you're like, wow, like this is a really cool moment. But to answer your guys' question, I was living in Florida. Like I said, I had moved down to Clearwater, Florida to basically pursue Ben. I wanted to learn about Ben's success. And he gave me the principle of success leaves clues. So I chased down Ben and I was like, I'm going to study this guy. Like, I'm going to figure out like, what is he doing? What does he know that I don't know? How did he grow his business? And I spent a lot of time in this community, learned a lot of things. And within that time, I was actually struggling financially again. And I got a job at a country club and I started like bussing tables. It was a very like random thing. I was like going out for jobs, all dressed up in like a nice suit, shirt and tie, and the light turned red, and I stopped. And I like at the light looked over and saw this beautiful golf course. I was like, oh, that's probably a country club. I'll go check that out. Go into the job. I get the job. I'm bussing tables. On like the second day, there's my wife, and I meet her, and I'm like, wow, this girl's beautiful. And I just knew as soon as I saw her, I was like, wow, I want to know more about this girl. And she's like talking about the animal-based diet, which I was also like doing. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And we met. She told me she had like goals to walk away from her job and be retired by the time she was like 23 or 24. She was 19. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I was just she was a very interesting girl, just like very into abundance and freedom and homesteading and stuff that I'm super fascinated by. So I asked her how the day that I quit, the day that I was like leaving the last day on the job, I like said like, we need to go out. And I chased her down the stairs. Like she was leaving and I was like, hey, like we need to see this through. Like, and she said, I'm sorry. Like I'm focusing on myself. Later reached out to her. I wrote her a letter. She's like, sorry, I'm dating somebody. And then I told her like, if this is
Hold
probably
up,
the best.
hold up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wrote her a letter.
It was
Wrote
a
her a
text.
letter.
It was a text
Okay.
letter. It was
Okay.
just a long text. I was super lonely and I was like, man, like I need to reach out. Like I need this part of my life back. I wrote her a letter. She said it was like the best note that she had ever received. And she was dating a guy, but she kept coming back to this note. And I told her, like, if you ever find yourself single, you can reach out to me. So she reached out to me a couple months later. And we started dating June of 2024. So we got married June of 2025. We got married a year after we started dating because we just realized what our goals were. And we knew that we were heading in the same direction and we had the same values. And I think when your goals and your values align, there's not a whole lot else you need to determine. Like, there are obviously a lot of questions you can ask a person, but for us, it was like, wow. Within a few months, we were like, this is definitely it. Like we're not gonna wait. We got married at a courthouse. Like, I think it was like 4 or 5 weeks after we got engaged, and then we've been married 5 months now.
Yeah, I need to
Yeah.
take a play from your book, Max, and just lock in. It only took me 7 years living with
I
the
don't think it's a
girl,
race though. It just depends. I could
traveling
have
the
easily
world,
been that guy.
traveling the
I'm also
world, doing
I'm
those
like
things.
26, and she always wanted to get married young, and she's 21. It was just kind of the culture of the relationship we were building. Like, we don't even use the D word. That's what we call it. Like, we're not going to use that in our relationship. So it's not
Yeah,
an option. We're going to get married. We're going to get married. Like, I don't even entertain it,
yeah,
and she doesn't either. So we know that like we're going to make it work. And I think that's actually Ben Patrick advice. He said in one of his videos once, he was like, "My best marriage advice is just don't get divorced." And I was like,
there it
that's
is.
actually really smart. Like, why don't you
There it is.
just figure it out? Because people run away from things, and
Well, that's
so
that's the thing. I think like the best dating advice I ever got was from this guy named Tom, who was a mentor of mine, who I used to train at a previous gym, and he literally said, "How do you even know if you like someone after one date? How do you even know?" Like he's like, I mean, he was kind of like talking about our generation. We're kind of like in similar generations. It's like, guys and gals will date, and they're like, I don't like this guy. They like this guy. They'll swipe right, swipe left, and it's like, how do you even know anything
yeah.
about anybody until maybe like 2 to 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and then you could really like start to get into them. And I was like, yeah, and that was like the rule that like happened with me, and not like a rule, but like kind of what happened with me and Des was like, I think she was dating people, I was dating some people, but it was like we were dating, and then it was just like, yeah, I don't. It just started being her, just started being her as time went on, and you just start realizing like, okay, yeah, yeah, this is the person, and it's like I agreed with what he said. It's like it just kind of takes time a little bit. I know for you it was a little bit faster.
Well, you know what happened with me was I was at a seminar, personal development seminar, and no one showed up. It was just me and this one guy teaching. I was like, this is great. Like, I get like one-on-one time, 3 hours. I paid like $50, and it was about like working, being productive with work and stuff like that. And it was really effective, and it helped me a lot. And then we got to a part where we were talking about like marriage and relationships and stuff. And I told him like I feel like my belief is that it's a distraction. Like, right now, it's just a distraction for me, and I don't want to pursue it. And he gave me this piece of information. He said, my piece of information that I always come back to in relationships is you're going to be better off with a partner than without one. Obviously, if the partner is like a good partner, like, you will be a stronger man and a better overall person if you have a partner than if you don't. And I like that really like hit me hard. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, if I do find the woman that I'm looking for. And so I actually went home and I like wrote out like, who do I want? My friend and I, we talked about it. Like, well, I want my wife to be funny. I want her to be into these kind of things. And I want her to have these kind of qualities. Not to say that you're like, oh, I need her to be this hair color and this shape or something like that. But like, who is this person at their core? Not like what music do they like? Maybe you could get into that. But who are they? And once I got that clear and I met this girl, I was like, this is her. So I knew what I wanted, and then I found it. It was almost like God was like, hey, here you go. So
Yeah.
for me, it was just like, it's kind of like the manifestation thing. But like, if you write it down and you know what you want, like any goal, like, you're going to find that person. And maybe it doesn't always happen that way. And also, someone told me that, but then people who are like married or like in a relationship are like, okay, I'm going to go write down everything that I want. And then you're like, show it to your partner. Like, you're not these things, which is probably not a good idea either.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you're already with someone, like, make it work. But yeah, that's how,
No, no,
that's how,
that's a good point. Is yeah, you're right. A lot of people can just jump into like the D word and not try to make it work. I
it's
mean,
sad. Yeah.
Desiree and I did have more of a fun, more traditional style marriage. Like, I'm Christian in faith, she's Catholic. I went to Catholicism, and like there's double bolster there. Like, we have to go through the whole Catholic process, get married, and
Sure.
if you're trying to get through a divorce, you have to do the whole Catholic process. She does therapy, I do therapy. We do. Um, we've wanted to do some couples therapy, and it's like I think the only thing that I've always listened to in my head that I know is always true is like, I'm only human. I only know the perspective I have right now. So if I'm not going to try to exhaust the different ways that this can truly work out, like Marcos and I work with a lot of members, right? And a lot of folks like don't even exhaust their sleep to work on their energy levels, right? They don't exhaust sleep habits or getting off the phone, or like they don't exhaust all their nutrition habits, or they don't exhaust all exercise. They
When
just
you,
want
when
like
you
the
say
the core.
exhaust, what do you mean?
I
Like
mean,
look
like
at it?
they don't truly work through the whole plethora of things that they can do themselves before they want like the quick fix. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Sure.
they're like, it's like, have you even truly exhausted all your options for you to go, I've done everything? Because we hear that all the time with clients of ours. I've done everything. I'm like, bitch, trust me, you haven't done shit. Like, like you haven't done anything. Like, but I think like what I'm trying to get to is like, for you is like, yes, we can try to exhaust all those things and it helps and we can make these adjustments. Um, and I think people in our society today, like they could really work on that a little bit more before they decide to like just throw in the towel. Let me ask you this though, because I want to bring it back to like the mental health stuff. It seems like you've had a lot of like growth in the mental health aspect of things. How has the relationship helped with like mental health? Like, what's your relationship with your mental health now? Like, obviously you've done the sessions, we've gone through this arc, pain, movement, therapy, some spiritual stuff, marriage. What's your relationship with that pain now? Because obviously that pain is there, like, but just the way our relationship with it might have changed. How has it changed for you since being married and stuff?
Yeah. Pain after going through the therapy and stuff, it was like a sort of awareness of what the pain was. And it's not always the easiest thing to know, okay, I injured this. Maybe that's real pain. Maybe it's not. Like when you overexert yourself, you go play basketball, you haven't played basketball in a long time, your Achilles starts hurting. Maybe you actually have like Achilles tendonitis slightly, like you actually have a physical problem. And so I had to go through that process of figuring out like, is this a physical thing or is this a mental thing? But for me, a lot of times, like if I were just walking down the street and I get like a random knee pain and it's just like out of nowhere and then it's gone and it happens again or something like that, that's when I'm like very aware if it's like a psychosomatic thing. So I tend to be very aware of those things and just kind of listen to my body.
Yeah.
And I almost kind of ignore it at this point. Like if it occurs, it's kind of like I see it for what it is, and then I just keep going about life. And that's kind of how I view like all of this pain and trauma thing. Where at first I got very into it and I was just like, this is all I want to think about. I'm like rear view mirror, just like all day thinking about my past, like processing things and want to get back into therapy. And there's a lot of value in that. I'm still continuing to do I'm pursuing different like psychosomatic pain solutions and things like that because there's an endless potential there. But there's a point where like you know who you are and you have purpose now. Like in my case, I have purpose. Like I know what I'm here to do and I know I want to really uplift the world. And that's what I'm putting my energy on now. I'm not putting as much energy on trying to dissect my brain and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's kind
Yeah.
of the big shift for me.
Yeah. There comes a point, I know Marcus knows this too. It's like there comes a point where personal development just becomes like mental masturbation at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because one of the best quotes that I ever heard was like Dana White. He goes, I went to a Tony Robbins seminar. I did it once and I've been succeeding ever since. And it was like, and then there's people that go to like seminars, this workshop. It's like, well, it didn't stick then. You didn't fucking learn anything. You know what I'm saying? Like you
Yeah.
keep going to the same things. It's because you didn't learn anything. You're kind of like, you're just stuck in inaction. You're stuck in creating a library of solutions as opposed to applying the solutions. And that's the thing about, I know that within myself, I know Marcos has probably called me out on it, of like preparation. Just like, if I have an issue, I want to know everything about this issue and be as prepped as possible. Read the books, do the self development, but it's like you're still stuck in the process of processing as opposed to like being in the process of like just going. Yeah.
Have you heard of what is it? It's like on time learning, like learning on time kind of idea where you only learn things as you need them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
That's Impress
okay,
talks about this a lot. It's like instead of reading a book, like, oh, let me read this book, but has no like practicalness to your life right now. And then there's you read it just because you want to store it for later. And then there's like the book came when you needed to like actually go through the shit.
yeah. Yeah, that's been a really powerful concept for me is just when you have a problem, like I am a marketing director right now. I run like ads and create content and help people build their brands and funnels and things like that. I'm actively learning about those systems, how to create offers and these kind of things because I'm really interested in it. But before I would have been just studying it and not had an offer or like no business to launch the offer or something like that. So yeah, business and that whole side of things has been a huge like area for me to now put my energy on now that I like have ability and I know I can do stuff. But I also wanted to say that when you were saying that, I feel like we were kind of set up to do that. Like that's kind of what the school system is, where you just kind of learn and you don't do anything. You just
Yeah.
kind of learn and like prep for the test.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The prep for the test component is definitely yeah. So it goes back to kind of what we were saying earlier about like the alpha school. The whole idea behind that was like to kind of condense down that like learning window for individuals because there's still core requisites things that you need to get done to help you
Right.
understand, right? And so can that be done in a third of the time per day for the student and for for you to go endeavor into those other things. And that's what like fascinated me was, can that actually be done? And does it then allow for other types of growth? And I mean, there's something to the socialization part of it. Like I wouldn't want my kids to be like homeschooled. I would want them to be in some sort of like peer engaged type of learning where they're learning from other people, because I know personally a lot of times when I was feeling kind of down and low in school, not necessarily depressed, but like what's the purpose? What's the point, right? As soon as I got around like other people that were like, in their master's program and more passionate about the project, I was learning through like fucking osmosis. It was crazy. I'm like,
Dude.
I
Oh,
feel so much smarter as a result of these people being around in the tutoring center nonetheless. So I felt like a fucking nerd because I'm over here making like $15 an hour in the tutoring center in college. But I was like, oh my God, I've grown leaps and bounds. And why didn't I do this sooner? And then if I were to impose something similar to that for my kids, right, where they're getting it's not parallel, it's they have a particular term for it in education where it's like you're trying to look at the vertical of like the grade levels and you kind of get together as a department. So when I was in the math department for a year, right, the idea was to align kind of your standards and kind of know where it was going. Easy enough for me. I have a degree in math, right, Max? So like, but learning in that kind of capacity of like, well, what's the point? What's the point? It's like I can always tell you what the next thing is, but at what point are you done? Like learning and quote, like this is like if you get a mastery of these components, that's enough for you to go, dive into those other things. So the mind and the human experience, I feel like is something that's, again, like you just said, like you wouldn't be where you are now as if you didn't go through those kind of hardships that were unique to you, which is, great. And I'm glad you were able to kind of like work through those, I mean, those moments where you're again down there. And I've definitely been there too. I've been there where shit, like I remember my wife and I on the early phases of our relationship and I'm sitting there and it was the end of the school year and I was like, I'm not going back. I'm going to focus on nutrition coaching solely. And in 3 months' time, I felt like I fucking failed because I had to go back into teaching at a private school the next year. Granted, my life changed because that's when we found out that we were pregnant that summer. So I was like, I can't not be making money. I have to have something coming in. I can still pursue the other thing, but I don't have the requisite tools or years of experience like some of my other colleagues in the coaching practice, like, because they all had like sales experience or other coaching parameters or other things that they had done. And here I am just coming out of school and all I've done is taught, and my parents are teachers. And, my dad's worked like a side hustle for a hot minute. Right. So those types of things I think are like, I look back, I was like, damn, if I had what I had now in terms of tutelage and people around me, like I could definitely have made it work. Except here I am now 8 years older. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't know what I didn't know. As I keep on going further along the hamster wheel, so to speak, of education, there's always more shit to learn. But then to become a good practitioner, you have to sift through like, at what point is it like a master's level that people never get into, right? Like you're saying, it's like, have you exhausted all the prerequisite things to get your health to the next level? For us as coaches, people are generally looking for some form of transformation in X timeline as their goal, right? We know that like, all right, I'm coaching to the goal. But in my head, I'm like, I'm not really coaching to just the goal. I'm coaching for their future. I'm coaching because they have continued to revert back to old techniques because they've never actually learned the core principles. So for me, and like you just said, that bigger purpose and getting into seminars with kids has been the big driver for me, and something that I was so passionate about. I wasted like $3,000 making a nonprofit, then just like disbanded after 2 years. So I was like, I could have just spent that money elsewhere, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. I'm good at doing the thing. I'm not good at fundraising because I don't like to ask people for something. But here I am back to that exact thing that got me into trying that, which is going back in and dealing with kids that are in a sports setting with soccer. I'm the nutrition and cook. We get together once a month and I get to like have fun with my mom, like teach these kids how to understand food from a macro perspective, quite literally in that sense. Like, here's the macros on it, here's what we're making, but also the macro perspective of, dude, this is going to be something you're going to take with you for the rest of your life. Like building a
yeah.
high density nutrition smoothie, that's important. That's something you can rely on. We're trying to figure out how to like literally piecemeal together some sort of mobile cooking operation, my mom and I, so we can like literally bake bread with kids and make tortillas. So it's like we're doing this without a kitchen, and it's like a ton of fun because it's like, I mean, shit, like you said, you drove halfway across the world, right? You're all the way across the country, right? And then you're just like, well, now what? Like, what could I do
Yeah.
to like get there? So a lot of these things that I know Seamus and I'm passionate about are really about that like non-traditional way of educating. And shit, dude, like I keep on saying this over and over. It's like we took out some of the fundamental core things that would let people live their lives after they get out of school. We don't know how to like, I think it's like a very small percentage. It might be 1 in 20 students actually know how to like sew a button back onto their article of clothing. I think it's even less than that. It's like it's like staggeringly low. Like I don't know how to do it. So I was
I'm
like,
definitely
okay,
not. Yeah.
like you're just like, fuck it. Like, that extra button that comes on the inside of your shirt and you rip it out. You're like, what the fuck is this for? And you just toss it out, right? Like, no one knows how to actually like use a spare button. You would rather just buy something new. But, I mean, over and over again, it's far more common is to have people come and be like, yeah, I don't even know how to really boil water. I was like, really? You don't know how to boil water? Like, I've just never done it. I was like, okay, that's different than not knowing how. I'm sure you can like light your stove and do it, but they'll say it in that level. I'm like, there's no way. So,
Dude,
you-
it's crazy, man. I feel like nutrition coaching is like probably one of the most, it's weird how it's like one of the most intimate things. Like health coaching is one of the most intimate things because people are going to get so vulnerable with you, right, Marcos? Of like, yeah, I don't know how to cook that. And it's like, dang, like, I guess we got to start at that skill, like the goal is to lose weight, but part of that skill might mean like,
yeah.
cooking.
Well, yeah. Well, statistically, to have people see some sort of outcome of success with nutrition, there is an element that requires you to cook or have most of your things prepared at home, like 80 to 90% of the time to maximize your result. As soon
Yeah.
as you have reliance on other people, and I think this is a great foil for life, as soon as you have too high of a reliance on other external things that you cannot control, life kind of goes to shit, right? The more things that you can bring back into your corner that you can control, the better the outcomes will be, right?
You say
And
foil?
foil, right? Like a comparison piece, right?
Oh,
It's
okay.
a great like almost an analogy, right? Like to it. Like I believe I'm using it right. Someone on the internet
I
correct
don't
me.
know. I have a habit that's actually something I picked up from like Ben. Ben is always big on like understanding words. Like he's very like when he studies a topic, like he understands every definition of the word, breaks it down, etymology, that kind of stuff. So I just have a habit. Every time I don't understand a word, I just ask people. So I've probably
Yeah.
done it a couple times on the podcast, but
Yeah. Ben
Uh,
seems very specific for sure. I mean,
he's a very
you
smart
can't,
guy.
you can't get the success he's had without being very particular.
yeah. In literature, a foil is a character who contrasts with another, usually the protagonist, and to highlight particular traits, values, or choices.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Book definition. Yeah. I like to I try not to, Max, I promise I don't try to like try to like come off pretentious, but I really like learning like you. And some people are like, you're using a lot of verbiage at times that is like too high level. I'm like, with nutrition, I'm talking like, I'm talking macros, like I'm talking protein, carb, fat half the time, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes like you forget about like how you want to do it. And like, just because I hold myself, one of the things my mom and dad were always like kind of like mad about me for was I didn't like to read. So I'm trying to instill like fun reading with my son as a result. Cause I still like, I mean, I read a fuck ton every day and listen to so much shit, but like I want to try to use what I'm learning, like that, like definition of the day. So, like I want to try to like do that and like bring it into the equation.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's a vocab thing. I had a mentor once that I met through Keegan Smith. That was one of Ben's mentors. This guy was named Paul, and he used to talk about how like people don't really know what words they're using, and they don't know where they come from, and they're just kind of speaking things that a lot of times people are using words they don't understand. But he also he used to talk about how the most intelligent person. This always stuck with me. He said the most intelligent person would be able to go into like a neuroscience conference with like Andrew Huberman and those type of people and have like a great conversation, and then right after go to the bar with where their friends are at from high school, catch up with those guys and talk the same language as those guys and fit in there, like to be basically like moldable to the situation. And I think that's also something Ben does really well because
Mhm.
he communicates only in language that his audience can understand. Like he communicates very, very simply. And that's something I'm always going to try to replicate as well. Cause I don't have a very big vocab, but that when I learned that about, there was something that Paul guy taught me that Shakespeare, I think he had like a 15 or 20,000 word vocab, and the average person today has like 3,000. So there's like a very direct correlation between how many words you know and intelligence and
Yeah.
genius, basically. Like more words you know, the bigger I think the bigger view you have of the world. So if you know the word like foil, you can now describe a specific scenario using that term. Whereas before you just didn't even know how to describe that thing. Like
Yeah.
that's what kids don't have vocab. That's why they're so like quote unquote not smart, but they're actually like still like they're very intelligent people, just like deep down, they just don't have the words to describe it. At
Oh,
least
yeah.
that's my belief. But
100%. I think people like Ben and this Paul guy you're talking about, they're like polymaths, you know, being able to string
Sure.
multiple concepts into the actual context that needs to be held within. And I think that only comes with being able to experience a lot of different things deeply, right? You could be a mile deep and a mile wide. That's like what a polymath would be because they have to connect a lot of things together even though they're not masters of these areas. They're not masters of the neuroscience, but they're dangerous enough to kind of speak upon it with that person. But
right.
they can go hang out at the bar and bring it back and take the expert level stuff and simplify it for their buddies to be like, oh, that was, dude, thanks for sharing that. You know, I feel that those are like some of the best polymaths. I feel like you only run into a few of those people. They're hard to come by. There's geniuses and there's some people that are like they're definable. And I've only met a few undefinables in my life. But hey, Max, we are like over an hour. I know Marcus probably has to go hang with his fam, and I got to hang with my wife. But
Good.
Max, I know this conversation, dude, super deep, going from telling your story about pain. I think a lot of people can resonate with this. I want to mention that like I really appreciate you being vulnerable, seriously, because like going through this deep stuff, like you know, Marcos and I will have podcasts that are just like all laughs, jokes, and just talking about shit we want to talk about. But I think this is important. I just want to put a bookmark on this because I don't think a lot of folks understand the concept of mental health and young male mental health and like some of the journeys you've gone through. I think a lot of folks, when you're in pain, you are just going to try to find anything, any solution, whether that be ATG, psychotherapy, psychedelics, whatever, to help you find that a solution to that pain. And it seems like you have worked through many solutions, but have found your own philosophy and your own solutions because you can't be married to a system. You have to take the best from every system and then create your own. And it sounds like you've done that. And I think it's important because I think a lot of men need to do that, especially men that were kind of in the same predicament as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's a long conversation that could probably last like 5 hours. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, and this is the first time I've ever gone on a podcast with a little bit more of an understanding of what I'm going to brand myself as in the world, because I know my story now, and I know that like basically when it's all said and done, I want people to be like the biggest dream, the Jordan Peterson thing, where he's like, "What could be better than that?" I don't know if you remember that, where he's like, people walk up to him and tell him like, "Changed my
Thank
life."
you.
I want that, but for mental health. I want people to come up to me like, "Dude, I'm only alive because of you," and that's like so purposeful that I don't think I'll ever stop.
Dude,
I just want to get out in the world and like tell my story and help people.
thank you for sharing it here because I think you're about to embark on a journey because it seems like like you said, you're figuring out how to create offers, how to create a brand, how to create the business stuff. Marco's are in the same way. If we can just have one podcast that, you know, one person's like, dude, I learned something from that or changed my perspective a little bit. I've done my job. I've done my job.
Yeah, you guys are doing great. You guys are gonna. I mean, this thing will be all over the world. I mean, if you just keep going with it, 100%. You guys are like having fun. Like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. And I'm sure the guests that have been on are like way more qualified than I am. So it's kind of probably a step down. It's
Don't
everybody's
praise-
qualified in a different way, you know. So
Yeah.
I definitely don't like talk down my story because I know it could save a life.
Yeah.
It's,
bro.
yeah.
100%. And the idea and the brainchild that is, was slightly a play on words in the beginning when we found the name, we're running with it because, while it's rooted to the core of like you want to talk about X's and O's in nutrition, happy to do that. We want to talk X's and O's in life. And like you just said, like, sure, there's other people that have been just at it longer. I don't necessarily know if they're better than you, Max. They just have more time in the game. That's really it. The people that we've had on that other people that are colleagues are like, how? I was like, Seamus is just annoying and just kept asking them and was persistent, damn it.
I'm just relentlessly like that guy that's like, hey, by the way, did you get that email?
But that's what I mean. That's why I love it. Is like these things are continuing to make us laugh, have fun, and hopefully bring in and usher in, like you just said. Can we go toe to toe with that high level expert. I was on, like I just said, yesterday I was on a call that was on a formulary discussion about oral testosterone, and all the abbreviations and all the like literature based stuff he was talking about. I was like, I understand this. This is fucking cool. And then I also was hearing certain things. I was like, I don't even know if he understands what he's talking about here, because he described different levels of fat that was supposed to be associated with taking the oral testosterone. And I was like, in my head, I was like, do I have to now go tell every one of my physicians that they need to take their oral testosterone with 15 grams of fat, i.e. an ounce of almonds, right? Like, and one of our, physicians then asked like, oh, can they just like roll it around in some butter? I was like, no, dude, they need an entire pad. They need actually more than that. They need 150 calories from it. Right?
Mm.
Like, so it was just like interesting to then see like, oh yeah, like he was saying a low fat meal. I was like, well, it's not as low fat as the exogenous testosterone being an injectable, which is what we're kind of, comparing against here. So it was like a very fascinating, like 1 hour thing. And the dude was super smart. I was like, wow, like it's crazy that like your time in the game and learning from people, like you're saying, can really allow you to like kind of grow. So, like
Yeah,
you just said, like
100%.
your story, your journey, all those things, they help solidify who you are at your core. I think that with me and Seamus, right, dude, like this is just solidified that like at first it was kind of a running joke that like, oh, the podcast guys. And now people are like, oh, the podcast guys. They're like, you guys have a little bit more experience with this than us. Like, what do you know? We're like, really not a whole lot, but we're
And
still learning every day.
also too, like kind of like what Marcus was talking about, like getting better at speaking. Like one of the things you're gonna learn as a skill, Max, is like branding, speaking, annoying people. Hey, can I get on your pod, or can you come on mine or something? I don't know, whatever you're gonna do with your offer. Like I was able to speak on a big stage this year, the biggest one yet for me. But it'll
Wow.
get bigger soon. We were able to open doors and get guests. And then yesterday, I think the biggest thing I've been trying to do now that like we've had a plethora of guests is instead of asking for guests, like I was like, who else can I connect you with? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I think to me, that's gonna be more important than me asking for the connection, because if I can give to a person that I admire, like this person that we had on yesterday was his name was Dane. He asked for somebody and I was like, I can give that to you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's a different level of energy that you're giving into the world now. Instead of asking, you're giving and giving and giving. And I think the biggest thing Marcos and I have been doing is just like we're just keep giving, man. And I don't know if we're gonna get anything in return, but
Givers gain.
well, givers
It
game. We'll get there
will.
someday.
It will always come back. It's karma for sure. And it's exchange. I try to follow that like exchange in abundance kind of idea. Like if you just give, you'll eventually get
Yeah.
back. But you don't do it to get back, you just
Yeah.
yeah, my wife and I are we're actually watching the Chosen series about like Christ's story and stuff. And like I grew
Yeah.
up Catholic. I got away from it and stuff, but like watching how that guy lived his life is like pretty cool. It's pretty inspiring just like how to like it doesn't even matter if you're not a Christian. Like to just like admire what he did and how he spoke and how he was. It's that's super fascinating to me as like a
Yeah.
study. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It is.
I know we could probably wrap it
Well,
up.
how about this, Max? What are you on now? Like, what? Yeah, like talking about like your offer, like, or where people can find you. Like, what community are you creating? Where can people find you? And what is it that you're going to be, kind of doing now? Just let them know. And yeah,
Sure. Yeah, so I mostly am starting to post content on Instagram and YouTube, and it's just Max Hernandez right now. I used to go by like Max Freedom. That may end up coming back. I kind of like the idea of the Max Freedom. It's like I'm pursuing freedom, and also yeah, as you can see, I'm kind of like still figuring my brand out, and that's kind of like where I'm at. But yeah, Max Hernandez. I think Max Hernandez 99 is my username. And then I love writing and speaking, so I kind of like write content, share it. I'm always kind of adjusting. I might go through a period where I'm not posting, then I go through one where I'm posting a ton. And then I'm also helping build my health mentors community on school. His name is Misha Sakharov, pretty much the smartest guy I've ever met in terms of health. Like I'm more interested in what he has to offer than Ben by like probably 3 or 4 times when I met Ben. I just really dove into his stuff and I want to promote his stuff. We're kind of just launching his school. And then, yeah, that's really it.
Sweet.
That's where I'm at right now.
Well, when we
I'm
drop,
not building any sort of community or anything. I really want to just make like free educational content for a long time and make money elsewhere. Like elsewhere, I'm not going to try to monetize my audience at this point.
got makes sense.
yeah, well, we'll put if you give us the details of the school community, we'll have it drop below. I know it's like happening in post production, but that way
Yeah.
we can get a link so people that might be interested in finding out more of this person's influence
I
and
mean, I didn't
impact
even
to.
talk about him, but he's
It
he's
doesn't
just got a. It's
It doesn't
crazy.
matter,
I mean,
dude. If people were like, that
it's
story
like
resonated and, you spoke highly of how someone brought you to where you're at,
yeah, right.
versus that, and then the next thing and like kind of where to find you. That's
Cool.
kind of That's really what we're trying to build here is it's like, hey, like it's just a repository of information for people.
Yeah, and if someone resonated with my stuff, just reach out to me, send me a message, and we can get on a call and talk. I love meeting new people.
Well, cool. Seamus, yeah, I mean, I don't know where all this stuff goes. I don't know if we've really gotten to the point where it's like down there, up there, over there. Like, click to watch this other video over here, do this over there. I always want to get to that point. Like, selfishly, I feel like that'd be really cool that we could do that in post. I don't know how to edit worth a shit. That's definitely not my forte,
I'll
but
get there.
we'll get there. But macro perspective peeps, ladies and gentlemen, did you know that we actually look at our analytics and we know that you're not subscribed yet? I'm just kidding. Like every other podcast out there. No, we really appreciate it. Thanks for giving us more and more views and listens over the years. We really appreciate it. Everybody that's come on, it seems like it's kind of growing exponentially right now. So we are super appreciative of the community that's going on. As it
Nice.
pertains to like where to find us, y'all know, right? Graham, Facebook, a little bit of TikTok now, right? We're gonna have all that stuff listed below if you want to like follow us on a different platform other than YouTube. And yeah, until next time, guys, if you have anybody you'd like to see, drop them in the comments below, and we will see you then.